Cordelia ran through the woods, her heart beating rapidly as she tried to block out the sounds of the conflict behind her. It was supposed to be a simple journey to Galdred to attend the party for Lord Ironwood and the wedding of his sister. Her parents were busy, having meetings and agreements they had to attend to back in Vendlios, but it would have still been seen as a slight if there wasn't a representative of her family at the wedding. Cordelia was sent off with a big contingent of guards, as was required, but their path was blocked by many felled trees, making them waste time to clear the roads, and unable to make it to the next town as the sun fell in the sky. With only limited light, it was no wonder they never saw the pitfall before the poor horses were pulled into it, or the bandits that laid in wait. They attacked in the dark, aiming for the guards with lanterns first, with arrows, before they swarmed out of the trees, fighting and bloodshed covering the road. Cordelia tried to find Captain Travis before Quinn and 3 other guards pulled her out and tried to run away, much to her own chagrin. "I can fight," she claimed, her hand on the pommel of the short sword she was currently training with. "I know," Quinn replied, "but they were waiting for us. Had to have. We can't see how many there are, but we need to get you out of here, and out of their hands." Only Cordelia and Quinn were able to run off into the woods. One was shot by an arrow from the still unseen archers, while 2 were dragged into the fighting to help cover their escape. So the 2 ran, the moon now glowing above them to give them the extra light they needed earlier, as the sounds of the conflict started to quiet down as they ran along a steep ledge. The sound of a distant arrow flying through the sky was the only warning Cordelia got before she was pushed to the side by Quinn, taking the arrow that was intended for her. Cordelia started to tumble down the ledge, crashing through branches and other brush before coming to a stop on leveled ground. A little battered and bruised, she seemed fine, before she tried to stand and felt pain run up her leg, barely stopping herself from letting out the scream she wanted to. She looked down. Her leg was slightly twisted and already started to bruise, the pain being extreme and hard to stand on. Looking around as the clouds covered the moon again, Cordelia found a small cave in the ledge she fell down, noticing the scraps of charred bone and animal parts scattered across the blackened entrance. Due to the size of the cave entrance, she knew whatever resided in it couldn't be too big, possibly the size of a mountain lion or a bear. But she noticed one charred skull near the entrance, the skull of a bear. What's in there?" Before she could ponder any more, the breaking of sticks and the rustling of leaves caught Cordelia's attention. Pulling her sword out, Cordelia started to back up towards the cave, hoping it was just a wild animal that didn't call this cave home. Though she feared even if it was, she wouldn't be able to handle it with her injury. Unfortunately, coming out of the trees were men, dressed like the bandits that attacked her on the road, holding themselves cockily with a predatory look in their eyes. From a more gradual part of the ledge, she saw a few more men come down, dragging a battered Quinn with them. "Ah, the fair lady thought she could lose us in a chase," one man started to say, having a rugged handsomeness to himself, as he played with a knife between his fingers. "But it seems a misstep has crippled that a chance of escape." Cordelia pointed her blade at him, panting heavily as she winced in pain. I believe you have nowhere to run. This ledge is the only area you'd be able to climb, if you weren't injured. The rest is too steep or leads you away from town in safety. Now, if you decide to come quietly, I'll make sure nothing unprofessional happens to you by my men, and I'll even spare your friend here. Cordelia's eyes darted around at the men and their hungry eyes and grinning faces, before she glared at the leader. One of your men already tried to shoot me. Yes, of course we did. We couldn't catch up with you at the current rate, and I saw an opportunity to slow you down. The man's face showed no sympathy or remorse, only a cold calculation, showing he didn't care if he hurt her, only that he got his prize. There's no way to trust him, Cordelia thought. That coldness in his tone, that underlying smugness in his wording, means I'm still fair game to his own hands. However, what was she to do? Surrounded by bandits, trapped by steep ledges, and heavily injured, it would be a miracle for Cordelia to get herself out of here. Not to mention worrying about Quinn. It's no use, isn't it? As she continued to sink and become overwhelmed by despair, Cordelia heard a heavy rustling from inside the cave, before a huge draconic roar echoed out and pierced into the night. Cordelia and the bandits quickly covered their ears as the roar continued. Many, including Cordelia, having dropped their weapons in the moment. The roar soon stopped, but the sound of heavy footsteps soon started to make their way towards them. The bandits quickly stepped back, crossbows and swords at the ready as their leader looked at the cave in slight fear. Who was supposed to have scouted this area this morning? It was Marcus and his men, sir, one bandit said. He never reported in, so we thought they had gone into town instead and got drunk. As the bandit said that, the light of the moon came back, showing just inside the cave the charred remains of several humans. Cordelia's eyes widened as the bandits started to pale, their minds coming to the same conclusion. It's a dragon's cave, one bandit shouted out, as many of them started to tremble. Cordelia had the same thought, before taking a better look at their bodies in the cave. They're being tied up to sticks, like some sort of warning? She noticed. And the size of the cave, it's too small for even the smallest dragon to get into comfortably, let alone be able to take on several humans and a bear. More footfalls could be heard, and while the bandits looked ready to run, Cordelia started to see a shape moving towards the entrance. But it could be the right size for a human. Slowly, a figure walked into the moonlight. A girl, who seemed around the same age as Cordelia, though a bit taller and more muscular. But her most defining features were the long scaly tail, patches of black and red scales across her body, and the two draconic horns on her head. The girl looked tired, most likely had been disturbed from her slumber by them, giving the bandits a look, recognizing their outfits as she snarled, looking like a predator when another predator trespasses into their territory. A small movement from Cordelia caused the girl to turn her head quickly to her, where a look of curiosity and intense interest formed on her face. Even then, Cordelia couldn't look away. Her own curiosity and something else keeping her focused on her, even with how intense the girl looked at her. "Don't just stand there. It's just a girl. Kill it!" The silence was broken as the bandit leader ordered his men to attack. Some hesitated for a moment before the first arrow was fired at her, though it did nothing as she easily caught it in the air before slowly turning back to the bandits. Before they could even fire another arrow, the girl rushed them, savagely tearing the crossbowmen apart. One crossbow skittering across the ground and landing in front of Cordelia. The bandits were scared. One even tried to run, but was shot in the back by their leader. "We have the numbers. Swarm her! Hack her under your blades!" The bandits then charged, screaming at the top of their lungs. But the girl was unimpressed, dodging their blades as she sucked in a lot of air, and then blew fire out, covering one bandit completely in flames. Cordelia could only sit there, shocked but amazed by the girl as she burned and tore apart the bandits that attacked her. Soon the girl was standing in the middle of a circle of charred bodies and ripped pieces, panting as she took in the carnage around her, seemingly not noticing as the leader slowly raised his crossbow, aiming for her head. The swish of an arrow through the air and the squish of it meeting flesh was heard, as the girl turned around and found the bandit grasping at an arrow in his neck before he fell to the ground. The girl turned, eyes back on Cordelia, standing up with the crossbow in her hands. Slowly, the girl started to approach Cordelia, who dropped the crossbow and raised her arms, showing she wasn't a threat. Hello?" The girl looked Cordelia up and down, studying her, sniffing her. She seemed to notice something about her scent, but was then confused about what she could smell and what she could see. "I thank you for, helping us out there with these bandits. Cordelia was stopped as the girl started to do a more in-depth study as she moved around her, poking, prodding, and lightly touching her body, though some touches lingered in areas for too long and caused Cordelia to blush. "Well, what do you think you're—" She was stopped again as the girl grabbed her face, studying her, seemingly looking for something, but not sure what it was, and seemingly unable to find it, causing a small growl to leave the girl's lips. "What are you?" The voice was a little rough, having some sort of accent that didn't hide her curiosity, but Cordelia quickly figured out one thing, her eyes going wide for a brief moment. Can she tell I'm..." A loud shout from above them caused the girl to stop and look up with a growl, while Cordelia also looked, dread quickly turning to relief. "Captain Travis!" The captain of her guard stood at the top of the ledge, a few scratches and cuts covering his body, along with the blood of those that attacked them splattered across his armor, with several other guards standing around him in various degrees of battle damage. The men started to hurry down the ledge, taking the same path the bandits used earlier, but as they got closer, they finally noticed the draconic-looking girl and had their swords at the ready. The girl noticed this in turn, and a growl slipped past her lips as they started to approach before she rushed back into the cave. Captain Travis looked ready to order his men to give chase before Cordelia stepped between them and the cave.
Wait! Don't hurt her. She's the one that saved me.
Captain Travis looked around at the bodies of the bandits. Limbs torn off, bodies burned to a crisp, and all the bones that littered the ground. Two other guards noticed Quinn and brought him closer as they started to patch his wounds.
It's true, they told their captain. A bit more savage than one would like, but it at least got the job done.
Captain Travis turned towards the cave intently, his blade still at the ready. We should have received some sort of report about her, yet I've had no word before we headed out.
Maybe she's just recently moved into this cave,
Cordelia thought.
The bear skull is the biggest animal I see around the entrance. She most likely fought it for the cave. It's possible none of the hunters in town goes as far out, or maybe even missed her. But it's also likely she was going to set up those bandit corpses as a warning to stay out of her territory.
Captain Travis pondered his charge's observations, nodding along in agreement, though it didn't answer all his questions. But before he could start wondering about them, Cordelia started to limp her way into the cave. My lady, what are you doing? Cordelia turned to look at him.
I'm going to properly thank her for her service.
Captain Travis was stunned by this, not believing what she said. But, my lady, just because she saved you doesn't mean she still isn't a threat. Dragon bloods aren't common on this side of the divide. We have no idea who she is, where she came from, or why she's here. Cordelia frowned at his words, giving her captain a small glare to make him stand down.
I understand the risks, Captain, but the fact is she saved me from these pigs. On my honor as a vanitas, I must thank her and offer her a reward.
Captain Travis looked like he wanted to argue, but couldn't, knowing he wouldn't be able to change her mind. Very well. Let me accompany you. Cordelia stops him from his offer.
I don't believe that would be a good idea, Captain. I don't think she'll trust you. Just give me a few moments, and I promise I'll scream to let you know if I need you.
Captain Travis looked ready to hesitate, but soon nodded in agreement. Cordelia turned back to the cave, taking a deep breath before entering the lair of the draconic girl. Hoping for a chance to talk with her, but still a little worried she might get burned. The cave was slightly bigger inside the deeper Cordelia limped in, her eyes slowly adjusting to the darkness as she thought about what she was going to say to the girl.
Okay, Cordelia, you're going to thank her and offer her a reward for her help. I'm not sure what she may ask for, but it shouldn't be that hard to acquire. My parents surely wouldn't find it hard to give, unless...
Thoughts started to cross Cordelia's mind, being reminded how the girl poked and touched her, even when she was holding her face, her golden eyes staring into her. Cordelia blushed hard, shaking her head to dislodge those thoughts. Soon now, the cave became too dark to see, feeling way too big and empty. Cordelia brought her hands up, closing her eyes in concentration.
Okay, Cordelia, It's just a small flame. For light, you got this.
She opened her eyes as the space between her hands lightly glowed before a ball of fire was conjured right in front of her suddenly, causing her to see the face of the girl she was looking for. Startled, Cordelia's fire quickly went out, as she stumbled back and fell to the cave floor, the palm of her hand cut open by a rock. Suddenly, there was light again, blinding Cordelia for a moment before she saw the girl easily holding a larger ball of fire in her hand, looking down at her with curiosity.
Is there a reason you're here?
The girl asked. Cordelia was just left speechless, trying to find the words as the draconic girl looked upon her, before letting out a sigh and offering her a hand. Cordelia stared at it before taking it, the girl then effortlessly pulling her up.
Whoa, thank you?
Cordelia finally let out.
You're, pretty strong.
The girl didn't seem to notice her stammer, as she soon turned around to walk deeper into the cave.
If you don't have a reason, may you please leave.
Caught off guard, Cordelia quickly started to follow her.
No, wait, I'm sorry. I believe we haven't properly introduced ourselves. My name is Cordelia Vanitas.
The girl didn't stop walking, soon extinguishing her fire, as a bit of natural light and another fire soon started to light the cave. They walked into a section of the cave that felt like a small room, with some furs on the floor, looking like a bed, a small cave pond, a roaring fire, dried meats hanging from the walls, and a small hole above with moonlight shining down onto a stone slab, with some sort of oval stone on it, catching Cordelia's eye for a second due to its red and black color, acting like an inverse of the girl's scales. Malva. Cordelia quickly turned back to the girl as she picked up a bag and started to put stuff in it.
Pardon?
Malva. My name. Malva of the Cinderhorns.
The Cinderhorns. I'm not familiar with them.
Shouldn't be. Old home is to the east of these lands. Or so Gekido told me before they left. The now identified Malva explained. Malva kept packing stuff, moving on to another bag to pack.
I see. How long have you been in this cave?
8 sunsets. Seemed quiet enough. Cordelia was confused.
Quiet enough? For what?
Malva simply shrugged. To stay, to train, to hunt. Before continuing my search for that fiery asshole for leaving me in this unfamiliar land.
Do you know where you were before all this?
Not really. We stayed mostly away from others. Would find abandoned and ruined towns to check out. Thought they left me to hunt, needing me off their back to fly. After third sunset, noticed stars were different. Left to find them probably 18 sunsets ago. This shocked Cordelia. The fact Malva didn't seem to know where she was or where her companion was didn't seem to make sense. How could she suddenly find herself in Solaron?
That's pretty strange,
Cordelia replied.
What are you doing, by the way?
Packing. Leaving. Malva easily said. Too noisy now. We'll find someplace quieter. Cordelia's eyes widened at this, knowing the cause of this was her fault.
I'm sorry you think you have to leave your home because those bandits wanted me. But I promise you don't need to move. Unless you want to move into the town. I can help you find a place as thanks for saving me.
Malva got up, stretched, then gave Cordelia a look, causing the girl to stop talking.
Was planning to leave eventually.
I don't need place around people, nor a reward for killing people like them.
What do you want?
Cordelia asked. Malva paused, seemingly thinking about it, before letting out a small growl, her nails digging into her palm and drawing blood. I want to get stronger. I want to clock Gekido in their big scaly face. I want to force them to tell me why they abandoned me. I want to know what this... Malva picked up the oval stone with her bleeding hand and put it in Cordelia's face. Is, and why was it after I found it that Gekido disappeared and I don't want to be alone. Malva was angry at first, but as she ranted, she became sad, still holding out the oval stone. Cordelia looked it over before placing her hand onto the oval to feel its texture.
It reminds me of an egg. The details carved on it are very interesting. Where did you find this?
Malva sighed again, letting Cordelia inspect it more, having to use her bloody hand to hold it up, as she lacked the strength Malva had to hold it in one hand. Some old temple of draconic origin, most likely made for Typhitra, the god of dragons.
I see,
Cordelia replied, studying it, taking in how big it was. Probably the size of a small watermelon, and about the same weight. Though she almost thought it was starting to feel a bit warm. Cordelia's eyes then widened, an idea coming to her mind.
I think I can help.
Malva then looked her in the eye, making the girl a bit nervous.
I mean, my family has a lot of books and records. We can use those to study this and figure out its purpose. Not to mention we have scouts and people that can help you locate your companion. And while you wait for any news on them, you can stay with me. You can train alongside me to get stronger, like you want, and have a nice room and bed to rest in, along with good meals to eat.
Cordelia then put on a serious face, though it was a bit hard since the oval felt hotter, but assumed it was because it was pressing into her wound.
I'm eternally grateful for what you did tonight. Let me repay you by helping you figure this all out.
A smirk then appeared on her face.
Plus, if we train together, maybe I can help you beat their ass in for ditching you and to get your answers out of them.
Malva looked at her for a long time, quietly. Cordelia started to get nervous again, before she let out a roaring laugh.
You've got fire in you, and seem a bit mad to willingly want to beat a dragon's ass. A dragon's... Wait, she's looking for a dragon?
Cordelia quickly fought in a panic.
But I like that. I believe we have a deal,
Malva said, holding up her bleeding hand. Cordelia readjusted the oval into her arm before grabbing Malva's hand.
Deal,
she replied as they shook. Cordelia cringed as she noticed she shook with her bleeding hand. Suddenly, a crackling sound came from the oval, causing the two girls to look down at it. Cordelia noticing it got even warmer as a few parts started to turn blue and black as cracks started to form. Soon it started to shake and a part of the oval broke off, revealing a purple eye. Cordelia, quickly but gently, put it down on the furs of Malva's bed, as more parts broke off like an egg shell. Before, popping out of the stone, was a dragon, a baby dragon, with red, blue, and black scales, looking and chirping at the two girls in front of it. Both were stunned, Malva's eyes extremely wide, while Cordelia surprised herself and was the first to say something.
Well, I guess that's one thing we don't need to entirely figure out.
I hope you enjoyed our first part of Legacy of Embers, a story that takes place in our fantasy world of Farius. For this series, patrons over on Patreon will be able to vote on events and ideas to see where this goes, along with seeing the art early. If you'd like to support this series in the channel, then you can head over to Patreon to become a patron starting at $3 a month, to get monthly rewards and help vote on where the story can go next. And if you liked the video, then leave a like, and subscribe to join our growing little Arcane town, to be in the know for future videos, both in this series and other series. Plus help spread the word on us, by sharing the video and art with people you think would be interested in this. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Later!